Come on, guys, let's go. Come on, guys, let's go. You don't want to go outside, huh? Come on, guys. Still thinking. Okay. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm the cat gardener. In fact, I've got Alice here with me on my lap. It's just so cold out that this is where she likes to stay. So I'm Diana and I have a mini urban garden in St. Louis, and that's zone 7A. So last week I did a ranked tier list video where I ranked the best and easiest things to grow in the garden. And it was kind of like a 30,000 foot overview of my favorite vegetables and fruits to grow. Today I'm going to talk to you about my favorite specific seed varieties and what I'm planting this year. In my zone, we have very long winters, short springs, and a hot and humid summer that comes on ridiculously fast. That's why it's really important for me to start my seeds indoors under grow lights, because alternatively, if I don't and I just wait for this never-ending winter to end to direct sow outside, that 90-degree heat is going to come on like overnight. Obviously, that's kind of an exaggeration, but I do have a very small window of time where I have like the perfect weather for growing. And so that's why I like to use this grow light system that I built last year to start everything indoors to get maximum production throughout the year. Today I'm going to show you a calendar of when to start your seeds indoors and eventually outdoors so that you can get bountiful harvests this year. So the calendar that I like to use is one that's freely available, and it's done by a local nonprofit organization in my city that likes to promote gardening, and they are called Seed St. Louis. They put out this calendar every year. It's one of the most visually appealing calendars out there. They show you different varieties that grow pretty well in our region, and they tell you exactly when to start the seeds indoors, when to transplant them outdoors, or alternatively, when to direct seed them outside, and how long will they grow for, and then at what point you can expect to harvest them. I encourage you guys to see if there's free resources like this in your city. What I like about this calendar is that it's made by experts, people who have been here for a really long time. Like, this organization is decades old, and they are not just experts in how finicky our climate is, but they also understand how rapidly changing that climate is. So for example, St. Louis used to be zone 6B, and now because of climate change, it is officially zone 7A. So some advice that they may have given out 5 years ago may not hold true anymore. So that's why I like that they update this every year. When it comes to gardening, I think that we should avail ourselves of free resources like this made by other members of the community, people who may have more experience, because at the end of the day, gardening is pretty hard already. So why should we have to suffer and like try to reinvent the wheel on our own when there are already resources like this available to take advantage of? If you don't find such a beautiful like calendar in this diagram form in your city, that's fine. Don't worry about it. All you have to do is go to almanac.com, where you can put in your location here, click go, and it will spit out a planting calendar for you for spring and fall. And it shows you, like, you know, the same thing, when you can start them indoors, when you can transplant them. And it actually has, it's more comprehensive than the calendar I just showed you. Like, this one has a lot more variety to work with. Whatever resource you end up using, it doesn't matter. All that's important is to know when we'll be planting these seeds, and so that you can have them bought and ready to go. And so that's why I ended up making a much more simplified version of the calendars we just looked at, because at this point, I only care about seed starting. I don't care about when we are transplanting them or when we're harvesting them. So let's just take a look at this much more dumbed down version. Basically, it tells me a monthly to-do list of when I'm planting these guys so that I can have all these seeds bought and ready to go by these time points. I like doing this because it was a nice exercise to like clarify in my mind exactly in which months I will be starting what seeds and whether I'm doing them indoors or direct sowing them outdoors. If you are someone like me who wants to plant a lot of stuff, things can get chaotic, and it's nice to see these things in like a visual tabular form so that you can organize your mind a little bit better. So let's dive right in. In January, we can start broccoli, cabbage, and onions indoors. And I know January is over, but it's not too late to start these guys. I actually don't plant these. I haven't so far. I actually poo-pooed on broccoli when I did my tier list video last week. I said that I don't have the space for it and I don't have the patience for it because it's a slow grower. But many of you guys reached out to me. You guys encouraged me to rethink broccoli because I was thinking, oh, you just cut off the head and that's it. What a waste. But you guys told me that it grows back more shoots. You guys told me that you can eat the leaves and the shoots. So it's all around a really great vegetable. So thank you, and I will be rethinking broccoli in the future for my garden plans. And now getting into February, we can start a lot more seeds indoors. So a lot of these will be leafy greens such as kale, chard, Asian greens such as bok choy, tatsoi, mustards, and some herbs like parsley and dill, as well as lettuces. And then we can do 2 summer vegetables in February as well, peppers and eggplants. Now let me show you my favorite seed varieties for these individual plants and what I will be starting in February. Let's start with kale. These are 2 of my favorite varieties for kale, the scarlet kale and the red Russian kale. What I like about them is that they're heat tolerant, they grow really well in our hot summers, but they're also incredibly cold tolerant. Like I had them growing in my garden even when it was snowing in December. They were doing fine up until the really deep freezes that we had when the temperatures got down to the negative something degrees Fahrenheit. So that was kind of too much for them and they clunked out. But I can't wait to revive my garden again with these 2 kales. The next thing I will be planting in February indoors is Swiss chard. And this is my favorite one, the bright light Swiss chard. This is the one where you can get all of the rainbow colors in your plants. It's really beautiful. And chard is a lot like kale in that it's very heat and cold tolerant. So what you can do is do cut and come again, meaning that you don't harvest the entire thing. You just cut off the shoots and the stems that you want to eat and it will grow back. So what you can expect is that the same plant that you put down in the spring will last you until early winter. Herbs that I will be starting indoors in February are parsley and dill. I don't have the seed packets yet for those. I still have to go and buy them. Dill is really easy to germinate and it's fast growing. And parsley, on the other hand, is harder to germinate. I've always had a problem getting it to germinate. I used to directly sow it outside and I would dump a ton of seeds outside and I wouldn't get very good germination rates. But the nice thing about parsley is if you can get it to germinate and grow, then it's a biennial plant, meaning that it will last you 2 years. And this year I'm going to try to enhance the germination by doing the seeds indoors, maybe using a heat mat to help the germination along. And now for something that is actually my wheelhouse. Asian greens that I will be starting indoors in February. This is my favorite bok choy. It's called the Little Shanghai, and you can get this pretty much anywhere. It's widely available. I like it because it forms bok choys that are not too big. They're just kind of on the smaller end, and that way they stay tender. They're not bitter. They're on the sweeter side of things. And 2 other Asian greens that I love to grow are mizuna, which is a mustard, and tatsoi. And these are really cold tolerant, just like bok choy. These 3 are all incredibly cold tolerant. They don't like the heat, so that's why it's really important to start them indoors so that you can get them into the ground when the temperature is still mild and not too hot yet. And just like the kales of my garden, these guys were also thriving even in December when it was snowing here. The next vegetable that I'm seed starting in February is lettuces. And I like these 2 lettuces a lot, salad bull and black-seeded simpson, because they're perfect for cut and come again. So you just cut whatever you need and it will grow back. They don't grow like a iceberg lettuce. They're not like a head where it would be difficult to like take off leaf by leaf. So these are really great if you just want your lettuce to last you a while. Lettuces hate the heat, so when it gets hot out, these guys will bolt. And that's why I also have on hand a romaine type of lettuce, and you can plant any romaines. They're all heat tolerant. I just happen to have this one on hand, but I plan to do romaine in the hot summers here, and I will do succession planting so that if something starts to bolt, I have another one ready to go. And I will also try to put it into a part of my garden that is shaded to protect them as much as possible from bolting. I will also be starting eggplants in February, and I love growing these Asian varieties of eggplants. I think they're more tender than the large varieties. I think they're also more prolific. I've grown large varieties before, and unfortunately, while they start growing okay in the beginning, at some point they just kind of become stunted in their growth, and I end up getting like a nubbin instead of a full fruit. So I've had way more success with Asian eggplants. You can just buy any kind of like Japanese or Asian eggplant at your favorite seed store, and you can't go wrong with any of them. The last thing I will be starting indoors in February is peppers. Historically, I have always grown bell peppers, but I finally realized that it's time to stop. I kept failing at them. I guess peppers are very fickle, so they don't like it when it's too hot. So for years, I struggled with only getting like one pepper for the entire season. This year, I am doing sweet peppers instead, and I chose two that are like frying peppers that would be perfect for making stuff like pastas. And so I chose an Italian frying pepper and a gypsy pepper. And now let's move on to March. So March is getting even more exciting. We're not just planting greens, we're doing some fun stuff like ground cherries, some flowers, and our beloved tomatoes. So let's get into March. This coming March, I'm most excited about planting ground cherries, and I learned about them very recently. I can't believe that I've gone all these years without planting them because apparently they're pretty easy to grow. I learned about them from that Seed St. Louis calendar that I had shown you guys. They are shrubs that have little tart fruits. I can't say no to growing fruits in my garden, especially ones that don't take a lot of space. And these are the seeds that I will be planting this year. It actually isn't super easy to find ground cherry seeds because they're not widely available. You kind of have to look around to see which seed companies actually carry them. I got these from True Leaf Market, and I use them a lot. They're California based, and I use them to get Asian greens because they have stuff that other seed companies don't have. And I like their seed packets a lot. Very colorful and very delightful to look at. In March, I will also be starting seeds for flowers. So this is my first year doing flowers in my garden. I have peonies in my front garden, but that's it. I've never used flowers as companion plants for my vegetables, but I realize that's a very important thing to have because it enhances the growth of your vegetables. So stuff like marigold, for example. Marigold is not only a beautiful flower, but it naturally repels certain insects. So I definitely need the help of that. I would love to have this as a companion plant for some of my most vulnerable plants out there because I'm sick and tired of insects just destroying my hard labor and my precious vegetables. I will also be planting borage this March. Borage is a beautiful blue flower. It's edible. You can put it on top of salads and stuff, and it just looks gorgeous. And I will also be starting seeds for zinnia. They're just beautiful flowers, different colors, and an absolute pollinator magnet. And that will also help enhance the growth of my vegetables just by having more pollinators around doing the hard labor of the garden. In March, I will also be starting seeds for basil, the ultimate summer herb. And this year, I just happened to find this at the store, so that's what I got. Honestly, you can't go wrong with any basil. Yeah, try Thai basil, try different Italian varieties. Basil is just super easy to grow. The last thing I will be seed starting in March will be tomatoes. And I'm very excited this year because I'm finally going to branch out and do something other than cherry tomatoes. So usually these are the 3 cherry tomatoes I always do year after year, starting with the Sun Gold. And these are beautiful orange cherry tomatoes, very juicy, very sweet. Similarly, I also do the Super 100, and these ones are a little bit smaller than the Sun Gold, but they're just as juicy and just as sweet. And finally, I do a larger cherry tomato, and that would be the Mountain Magic. And these ones produce clusters of large cherry tomatoes that are perfect for pastas. After all these years of just doing cherry tomatoes, I feel like something is missing from my garden, which would be large, like slicing kind of tomatoes. The reason I haven't done them in years is because I got burned early on in my gardening journey. So I did large slicing tomatoes at one point, but the squirrels and the worms got to them before I did. So nothing even ripened for me. I never even got to taste least one of the tomatoes, but right now I'm feeling like I have mastered cherry tomatoes, so I should try to branch out into these larger tomatoes. Obviously, they will be a lot harder, but we'll see. And so this year, I bought 2 varieties of large slicing tomatoes. Brandy Boy, which is specially bred by Burpee. I think you can only get it from them, but it's supposed to be very disease resistant and a very tasty tomato. And the other large slicing tomato I got was a Big Beef, and that one is also a little bit difficult to find. I found it on tomatofest.com. And a third variety that I got of a large slicing tomato it's actually a dwarf tomato. It's called the Rosella Purple. And this one is also a little bit difficult to find, so I got it on Tomato Fest as well. I'm very intrigued by these dwarf tomatoes because, as you guys know, I don't have a lot of space, so I'm always curious about plants that can produce a lot but not take up a lot of space in my garden. Now, normally my tomato planting schedule works like this. I seed them in March indoors, and then they are ready to transplant into the soil when the temperatures reach about 60 or 70, and that's about Mother's Day time. And then I can get my first harvest the 1st of July. But this year, I want to be able to harvest even earlier than that, and it's because our summers get really hot rapidly, so tomatoes actually don't like it when it's too hot. Like, they're summer loving, but they don't like it when it's like 90 or 100 degrees out. So this year I'm going to experiment with 2 varieties that are early growers. They're very commonly planted in the Pacific Northwest, where they basically don't have summers. They only have spring as their weather. And I got the Celots and I got the Glacier, and both of them are from Tomato Fest. So what I plan to do with these is I have a southern-facing front yard, and that gets really decent light. So I'm going to put these guys in containers when they're ready to transplant, and they'll get really good sun during the day. And at night, if it gets a little bit cold out, then I can always take them inside. And actually, because these are early varieties, I will be starting them earlier than the regular March tomatoes. I will be starting them this month. In a nutshell, that is my tomato plan for the year. I hope to get a better harvest than ever before, and I will keep you guys updated on it. And finally, in March, we can do some direct sowing. So even though our last frost may not be until the middle of April, the ground can actually be worked and sowed before then. So as soon as that ground becomes unthawed and workable, meaning that if you take a ball of soil and it crumbles instead of staying all together, then it's time to direct sow some stuff into the ground. Stuff like peas, fava beans, potatoes, root vegetables like radish, beets, and carrots, as well as arugula and spinach. Now let's get into my favorite seed variety, starting with peas. So if you guys like snow peas, Snowbird is a really great option, very tender pods. And if you guys like snap peas, the sugar snap is the classic kind of pea that you're looking for. And remember, for peas, you need a little bit of light trellising so that they can climb, but it doesn't need to be anything heavy duty. In fact, I've seen people use something as lightweight as yarn to hold their peas up. Basically, they grow their peas in between these trellises of yarn that they've fashioned together, wrapping 2 T-posts end to end with yarn, and they wrap that up the T-posts to make it kind of vertical. And then the peas are kind of in between these rows of yarn so that they will grow up in between them. When it comes to finding fava seeds, it can be a little bit hard to find. Not every seed company sells them. I have bought them from Johnny's in the past, and True Leaf Market also sells them. That's where I got my seeds from this year. And you kind of want to get like at least a pound of it if you want to get a decent harvest. I got 2 pounds because I just love fava beans so much. Another thing that I will be growing in March is potatoes. I've actually never done potatoes before. I didn't realize how easy they were, but it sounds like fun because it sounds so easy, and all I have to do is take the stale potatoes from my refrigerator that have been there for a long time, growing their islets and stuff. I just have to cut them to little pieces, drop them into some dirt. I can even use a container, and then around June, July, I should have a bunch of potatoes from that. The first root vegetable I will be planting in March is radish, and the French breakfast is my favorite radish variety. It's so beautiful, and radish is so fast growing that within 3 weeks, you'll have something that looks like this in your garden. Like, isn't that amazing? And then my other favorite radish variety is the cherry bell. In real life, it's the same kind of vibrant color that you see here. Like, there is no filter. Like, this is just how it looks in real life. Another root vegetable that I will be sowing outside in March is beets, and the Detroit dark red beet is one of my favorite ones. It's very heat tolerant and cold tolerant, and in fact, if you guys don't like beets, you don't like the roots of it, you can just plant it for the shoots. The leaves taste a lot like chard, and it's one of those cut and come again greens, as long as you don't pluck the root out. I will be trying a new beet this year. I picked this up in the store just because of how it looked. Like, check out all the swirls in those beets. This one is an Italian beet and it's called the chioggia. And I like it just because I like the idea of growing beets with all these little waves in it, like these little narutos. As for carrots, to be very honest with you guys, I am no expert in carrots. I've not grown carrots very successfully in the past. It's probably because I have a lot of clay in my soil, so it doesn't make for very good root formation. But this is what I have, and I'm going to be trying carrots again, and I'm probably going to do containers this time so that I can get looser soil, hopefully better root development. And I think this little finger should be better for containers because it's on the smaller size. And the last things I will be sowing outside in March are arugula and spinach. So arugula is one of the fastest crops out there. In less than 3 weeks, you should be able to have fresh arugula for your salads. It actually doesn't need to be directly sown outside. You can actually get a jump start by starting it indoors, but I guess I don't really see the point in that. If it's such a fast growing crop, I might as well just direct sow it outside. That way I don't have to waste time dealing with seedlings inside. As for my favorite variety, I don't really know if there's many varieties out there. I've always just seen one type of arugula, also called rocket, and so I just pick up whatever's at the store, and that's about it. And now for spinach. I always use this spinach, and it has served me really, really well. Spinach is something you definitely want to sow outside. You don't want to deal with transplanting because spinach, it's not a root vegetable or anything like that, but it still suffers from transplant shock. So spinach, save it for sowing outside in March. Oh, and a word of caution, this calendar isn't supposed to be like a rigid thing. It's not like trying to say that, kale can only be started indoors in February. No, actually, kale can also be started outdoors in March, along with your peas and stuff like that. This calendar is really just a framework for me to know when is the earliest I should be starting stuff to get a jump start on everything. It's not meant to be comprehensive. And for that, I recommend you guys look at the calendars we looked at in the beginning because those are actually comprehensive and those will show you the ones that absolutely have to start indoors or the ones that absolutely have to start outdoors because they hate transplant shock or something like that. And then the ones that are ambidextrous and they can either be started indoors first or directly sown outside. Jumping into April, I'm going to be starting seeds for melons and zucchini indoors then. So you don't have to do it indoors. You can just wait for the temperature outside to get a little bit warmer and then just direct sow them. But I want to jumpstart it as much as possible because last year I got burned when I didn't start melon seeds early enough. And then in the end, I got nothing. They take a while to grow. And that's why I want to stick with growing small melons. The smaller it is, the faster it grows. There's less pest problems, squirrel problems, etc. So last year I did a Minnesota midget, which is a small variety, and apparently those don't taste very good, which I didn't realize until now. So this year I will be doing a different variety. It's also a small melon, but this one's supposed to have more flavor, and it's called the honey rock melon. As for zucchini, I actually don't like the taste of regular zucchini. I think it's soggy and the consistency is kind of weird for me. So I prefer Roman zucchini actually. And I don't have any seeds with me today, but just go out there and search for Roman zucchini. You'll find it. They're on the drier side, so when you saute it, it doesn't get soggy at all. It's perfect for pastas, and the flour is really delicious. It's a delicacy. And finally in April, once the threat of the last frost has passed in the middle of the month, we can finally get green beans into the garden. In terms of green beans, I have been planting the Kentucky Wonder pole beans for years and years. It's good, it's fine, nothing wrong with it. Just that when it's young, it's stringless, but if you leave it on the plant too long, then it gets stringy. So I decided, well, why not just look for a different variety that might be a little bit more tender, a little less stringy, and I came across the Blue Lake pole bean variety. They say that it might be a little bit more tender and less stringy, so we'll see. Another thing to plant into the ground in April after frost is gone is nasturtium. So this is a beneficial flower that my garden has been lacking. It's supposed to repel stuff like cabbage worms, and it's supposed to be a trap crop for cucumber beetles and squash bugs, you know, the horrible things that you guys hear me complain about all the time. So we'll see how this experiment goes this year. The final thing I will direct sow into the ground in April is cilantro. Cilantro is quite interesting because it takes 2 months to harvest. So if you're planting it in April, then you'll be harvesting it in June, but it gets hot by that time. So I have to protect cilantro, which hates the heat, by planting it somewhere in the shade so that I can protect it for as long as possible from the summer heat. And the final things for our spring-summer season to plant will be cucumbers, okra, and edamame, and we can start those indoors in May. So cucumbers are notoriously difficult because they succumb to the pressure of cucumber beetles and squash bugs. I have bought varieties of cucumbers that claim to be disease resistant, but that has not been the case for me. So what I end up having to do is like spraying the cucumber leaves with kaolin clay to protect them from getting bitten by all these terrible bugs. This year I'm going to do parthenocarpic varieties instead. Parthenocarpic means that they can self-pollinate. So if you have a greenhouse, you grow your cucumber in there, you don't need the pollination help, and you protect them from insects, and they will make you a lot of fruit. I don't have a greenhouse, so I can do like an insect netting, throw it over the cucumbers, protect them entirely from the bugs, and hopefully still get harvest that way. And the two I would be trying this year are the China long and the Suyo long, both of them Asian cucumber varieties. Another vegetable I will be planting in May is okra. Okra loves the heat, so you don't want to plant it too soon into the garden. May is the perfect time to start your seeds. Okra grows really, really quickly. It is also disease resistant. I don't think it has any pest problems at all. The only thing you have to do with okra is just harvest the pods at the right time. When the pods are about like a finger's length, that's the best time to harvest because that's when they're most tender. The variety that I have grown in the past is called Go Big, and it has served me really well. It's great, but I guess I didn't realize that there were varieties with fewer spines, like fewer prickly spines. Like I came across this one called the Clemson Spineless and realized that it claims to have fewer spines than other okras. And looking back, the ones that I've grown have, yes, they're prickles. Like when you go and harvest one of the pods, you might accidentally get prickled, and that's not very fun. So I wanted to try something that's spineless. So we'll see how this goes. And the final thing that I will try to seed start in May is edamame. I actually didn't even know you could grow this here. I learned about it from that Seed St. Louis calendar I showed you guys earlier. Edamame, when it's fresh, is way better, way more tender than that crap that you find at the supermarkets, that frozen crap, or that frozen crap that they basically serve to you at restaurants. So I'll let you know how that experiment goes. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It was a bit of a whirlwind tour for my entire garden plans for spring and summer, so I'll make sure to leave a list of everything I talked about down below for reference. Stay tuned for next week because I will be starting seeds indoors under grow lights. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, please subscribe to my channel for updates, and send me more questions and comments. We're all here to learn from each other, and I really enjoy being part of this community. You guys give me the best advice and ask me really great questions. I'll see you next time. Bye.